Welcome to another video on listeners. In this demonstration, we will understand response time graph, which provides a visual of how the responses were received during the test. Let's get started. I have the JMeter test plan open from our previous demo. In the last demo, we have added the aggregate report listener. Now let's go ahead and add the response time listener. So I'll right click the thread group and select add, and we'll go to listeners, and here we're going to select the response time graph. Once we add this listener, we can again go ahead and run our test to generate a graph based on our test results. So let's save it and run the test. Once more, JMeter is asking me to overwrite or append the results to the existing CSV. I'll say overwrite. If we go to the view result tree, the 4 samplers and the summary report is also reporting total 4 samplers and each for one of these HTTP requests. Aggregate report is also reporting the same thing. If we go to the response time graph, we have a display graph button. Let's click on it. So it's saying unable to graph, not enough data. The reason for that is we have configured the test to run it for just one user, and we have configured it to send only 2 requests from that user. So let's go ahead and increase this so that we can generate a proper response time graph. I'm going to increase the number of users to 10, and the loop count, I'll increase it again from 2 to 10. That means each user is going to get 10 requests. So 10 for this sampler and 10 for this sampler. So now let's go ahead and save this, and once more run the test. Before that, I'm going to clear the previous results. Overwrite. Now let's click on display graph. Okay, so let's decrease that interval to 100 milliseconds and say apply and display graph. Now when I do that, I can see that the red line indicates my add new pet HTTP request, and the black line over here is indicating fetch all pets HTTP request. And this is how the responses were received over the test duration. So during my test, the first response for the add new pet was received within 12 milliseconds, and the first response for fetch all pets was received somewhere in 5 milliseconds. You can also go ahead and download this if you want. You can click on the save graph button here to save this particular graph as a PNG file. You can also go ahead and modify a few things like change the fonts and change the title of the graph if you would like to do that. You can also change this interval from 100 milliseconds to maybe 1 second, depending on how granular you want this graph to be. So depending on how much data you have and how much granularity you want in your graph, you can set this interval here. And once you enter the value for the interval, you do need to click on apply interval. So let me set it to just 10 milliseconds, click on apply and click display graph. Now you can see a different graph over here, which is much more granular. You might not want it at this level of detail. Also, if you have an existing JMeter result, you can load that file to generate this graph. You can click on browse and look for an existing result of your test, open it and generate the graph for that as well. In the next video, we're going to explore another useful listener in JMeter.